Yo, what up, street gods? Eric Kim, Ride the Thought. So I'm a California baby, and this is essentially why California is overrated. So a lot of people think that, oh, you know, if I move to California, you know, I could finally be so happy because it's always sunny, and you know, Southern Bay. I think people typically think of like LA, Southern California, where it's always sunny, 74 degrees, no winter, no nothing. And currently here in Providence, Rhode Island, where it actually gets pretty cold, but this is why I'm so much happier living in Providence than I am in California. So the problem is, this is what I've realized, at least for myself, it's not really the cold that bothers me so much. I always thought it was the cold. I think for me, actually, especially being a photographer, it's more of a light issue. It's when it gets really dark and gloomy all the time, I actually get pretty depressed. But once the sun comes out, you know, my mood is enlivened a lot. Like, so even right now, it's like kind of chilly outside, but because it's nice and bright, it doesn't bother me so much. And this is where it's so funny, is that like I visited Denver, and Denver is so interesting because it's cold, but because the altitude is high, it's actually very bright. So the brightness kind of improves your mood. And so for me, you know, depending on what your weather, life situation is, just try to get as much natural light as possible. And you know, I don't know if the tanning beds and stuff like that really works, but certainly something about the light is a good thing. And even thinking about, you know, Sweden, there's the saying, the no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothes. I kind of do like the vibes. And other reasons that I prefer life outside of California is that, like, even being here in Rhode Island, you know, meat is just cheaper, and I do find that the more meat I eat, generally the happier I am. And you know, in California, even when me and Cindy were living in the Bay Area in Berkeley, the cheapest meat we get was like pork belly at $4.99 a pound. Here I could get for like, you know, $2 a pound. And so I eat better, and I end up sleeping better. And you'd also be amazed too, because, you know, I also do think that optimizing for low cost of living and low cost of rent is so much better, because, you know, you live in California, you're paying an arm and a leg for rent. And then, you know, people in the Bay Area, what's people's favorite dinner conversation to have? Complaining about how expensive rent is, right? And so once you could actually free yourself mentally of being concerned every month about paying for rent, you'd be amazed how much that could do for you, like mentally and also creatively. Because I think in order to become more creative and more joyful in life, it doesn't mean to just like own more expensive things and owning more whatever. It's more like, it's like a via negativa concept where you're kind of removing superfluous concerns from your mind. So, you know, me and Cindy were talking about this the other night too. It's like, man, it's crazy when we were living in Hanoi in Vietnam. Dude, living in a really nice studio apartment was only $350 a month in rent. $350. And then assuming we're eating out every single night, me and Cindy, and you know, we're living our like lavish luxury lifestyle in Vietnam. You know, between the both of us, right? It's like $1,000 a month. And we're like, you know, doing the uber bougie stuff. And so, you know, right now, currently, you know, Cindy's doing her professoring thing, so we're in the States. But if I actually had a choice, I'm just like, man, like, why even live in the States? You know, I'd prefer to live in Mexico City or Vietnam. Obviously now with COVID, the scenarios are a little bit different, but essentially, the way I feel about things is, you know, optimize lowering your cost of living tends to be better. And yeah, and I think, and this is my thought too, is when the weather is good and I'm in Southern California, I'm actually like, obviously I'm not as cold, but I'm not necessarily happier, because when the weather is always 74 degrees and sunny and nice, you're just kind of like lazy, like, you know, it's just so nice. And for me, when I'm a little bit lazy or too content, I'm actually less artistically or mentally productive and feisty. And in some ways, even when the weather is kind of poor, to see good days and bad days is kind of like, I'd prefer, you know, I was telling my friend Jeffrey Lamb this, is that I'd prefer a life where So if you're living in California, especially in Southern California, I would say your happiness is like a solid 6.5 out of 10 always. Whereas living in where weather is a little bit more variable, your happiness levels might go to -15, but also +15. I think, you know, that kind of roller coaster approach to life, I think is actually a little bit more fun and meaningful. But anyways, so I mean, this is just like my experience as a Californian, you know, born and raised in the Bay Area, born in Alameda, went to college, I went to UCLA in Southern California, lived in West LA and stuff like that. And so just kind of realized that, you know, anyone who's from the East Coast or whatever, who, you know, wants to have the experience of moving to California or the Bay Area, like, I don't want to discourage you, but at the same time, knowing that happiness goes beyond climate, to me happiness is more, for me, like even a better thought than happiness is creative productivity. Natural light to me is much more important than warm weather. So maybe this is also +1 for Denver, is that like, as long as you could live in an apartment or a home or a place that has a lot of natural light, or if your house doesn't have a lot of natural light like mine, just going on as many walks outdoors as possible. And yeah, just knowing that, you know, typically I think climate is overrated for happiness in life.